Welcome back to a new episode of Emerging Brands Podcast with Kelly Bennett. Today, I have a founder who's right on the cusp of launching, getting ready for pre sale. And when I found her brand, For the Love of, I knew Megan Pruett had to be on the show. So, Megan, thank you so much for coming on today.
Thank you for having me. It's such a pleasure.
You're so welcome. For one, your branding is gorgeous. I
Thank you.
love your social, the whole vibe. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I need to follow this brand. I need to talk to the founder. So I would love to kick things off of your background story, a little bit about your career, and then how you decided to take the leap in building your own non alcoholic wine brand.
Yes. Well, first off, you're so sweet for those kind words. Thank you so much. And yeah, to dive, quite into it is my background is primarily in advertising and marketing. So specifically more performance marketing. So definitely, paid social, programmatic, digital out of home, things of that nature. I worked at some pretty large advertising agencies working on everything from a potato chip brand all the way down to a mattress, company. I've kind of touched all different facets of whether it's CPG, food and beverage, all of the things. And so I have a pretty good understanding as to how a brand can take their product to market and really, really, create a marketing strategy that people want to sink their teeth into. I ended up pivoting and going over to Snapchat and helped their financial service team really grow their business. And it helped a lot, especially in the field that I got into, is because financial services traditionally isn't a very sexy market, believe it or
Right.
not. And so our task at hand was how do you create a marketing strategy that makes people really want to sink their teeth into a product or a brand that isn't traditionally something that people want to get behind, whether it's a financial service industry or a non-alcoholic beverage. People are not 100%, chomping at the bit to say, oh, I'm standing behind this brand. So you have to do a lot of legwork to get that, to get people excited about it. Um, so from a background standpoint, heavy in performance and digital marketing. And then from a personal standpoint and how I got into this venture is it was about, almost 5 years ago where the sober curiosity kind of started um coming into my head. I was living up in Chicago at the time and like I said was in the world of advertising marketing and a lot of that this was all pre-COVID, a lot of that was going out with clients and being
Right.
entertained by clients and entertaining clients and a lot of that had to do with drinking and around drinking and eating and I was also blessed to have an incredible group of friends out in Chicago and so once it hits negative 10 degrees, there's not a lot to do in Chicago besides hunker down at a bar and cozy up with a beer or a cocktail and, enjoy the winter. And so I was doing that for a few years, and when I got into my mid-20s, I started to struggle with a lot of anxiety. Um,
Mm.
and I found that when I would drink, it was just igniting an anxious fuel that was already in my belly, and I'd wake up to after a night drinking, not even doing anything that I regret per se, but just flooded with anxiety, and I couldn't I couldn't get past it, I'd go into a night saying, "Okay, we'll have 1 drink and a glass of water, or 2 drinks, and, I'll really try and moderate," and it didn't matter how much I moderated or how few drinks I had, I'd still wake up just, like, riddled with anxiety, and, a therapist once asked me, "If you could change one thing about your life, what would it be?" And immediately, without batting an eye, I'd say my relationship with alcohol, and that was really
Interesting.
the light bulb moment, and from the outside looking in, I don't think one of my friends or a family member, anyone who really knew me, would ever have said, Megan's relationship with alcohol is kind of testy. I mean, of course, I've had my moments, as everyone does in their early to mid 20s, but
Yeah.
it was definitely not something that was present to the outside world. It very much was something that was an internal struggle. And so when I moved out to Los Angeles, there was actually a period of time where I was in between jobs. So there was about 2.5 months where I had left a job and was looking for a new one. And I used it as an opportunity, more so for friends and family, because I didn't have to really voice that I wanted to remove alcohol from my life, but I used it as almost an excuse to say, hey, for the time being, I'm going to quit drinking while I look for a job. It, adds anxiety to, like I said, an already anxious fuel. So I'm just going to cut it. And, through those few months, I started consuming every piece of content, audiobook, podcast there was around living life without alcohol. And everything that everyone was saying resonated with me so much. Everything from, you know, the whites in my eyes started to look whiter. And, I know it sounds like a cliche, but I was sleeping better and jumping out of bed and wanting to go to my 6 a.m. workouts. And it's everything that I had wanted my life to look like,
Right.
things happening. And so it went from a 2 week or a 2 month kind of experiment. And then it started being like, okay, I'm going to go for 6 months. Okay, I'm going to go for 8 months. And then I hit a year. And within that first year, I leaned heavily on non-alcoholic drinks. I was fairly new to living in LA, single, still trying to meet friends and find my footing in, the world, and being able to lean on non-alcoholic beverages in social settings was really, really pivotal. I'm also someone who really likes the taste of beer, wine, good cocktails. And
Right.
so that was something that I also really liked. And it was fun for me to, go to these up and coming brick and mortar stores that were only alcohol free and kind of see what else is out there. And so, like I said, I leaned heavily on the NA beer, NA mocktails. And then when it got down to trying the NA wine, I was left frustrated what was currently lacking in the market. And for context, I grew up in a wine enthusiast family. I have been drinking high quality wine with my parents and my family for, you know, from I think the ages of, 18 on. And so my caliber for high quality wine was very, very high. And so when I was dabbling in the NA wine space as a consumer, nothing was scratching the itch.
Right.
There was definitely some wine alternatives that I think was good for a certain occasion. There were some wines that definitely had, teas, adaptogens, some carbonated components where it might look like you're drinking a glass of wine, but when you taste it, it wasn't giving that full body, jammy, mm, great wine that I'm used to. And so from there, I started doing a lot of research, and I saw how booming the non-alcoholic industry as a whole was becoming. And then I also did more digging, and I saw that there was quite a bit of white space in the non-alcoholic wine sector. There's been some instrumental players in the NA space. Athletic Brewing, for example, came in
Right.
and really disrupted the NA beer space. And I believe truly there's two pieces of why they've been so successful. The first and foremost is they spent a lot of time on the beverage development. They didn't just throw spaghetti at the wall and say, hopefully it's a good NA wine with a fun story behind it and, say a prayer. They were really, really strategic and brought in a master brewer and ended up creating their own brew house and created beers that taste potentially even better than some of the traditional beers out there. And they've also, created an incredible story, very similar. I almost compare it to, a Michelob Ultra, where after you run a marathon or after you go, come back from a hike, you want a crisp cold beer. And Athletic Brewing has positioned themselves to be that athletic beer for for so many people. And I love that their consumer base is so heavy surrounding people who actually drink alcohol. I think the statistics
So
are like,
smart.
80 or 90% of their consumer base actually drink alcohol, which I love. So that's where I just thought I have to do this. I have to move forward and see at least one, why hasn't anyone kind of moved the needle from a taste standpoint? And is there an opportunity for someone to come in as a trailblazer from a branding standpoint and be that person in the NA space where people, like I said, want to sink their teeth into a brand? So my first plan of attack was get a team of winemakers, mixologists, sommeliers who really understand the craft of winemaking. I get asked on social all the time, did your parents own a vineyard? How did you get into this? Like, I don't understand. How do you make wine? And these are all great questions because these are questions that I had to also find myself. I live in Venice, California. I unfortunately at this point in time do not have my own vineyard. So I had to do a lot of research and find people that knew what they were doing. And so my biggest differentiator when it comes to my beverage is the quality of grape. I
Okay.
always like to say, when you're looking at $100 bottle of wine versus, a 7.99, maybe a $2 chuck, there's going to be a pretty large differentiator when it comes to taste. And the reason being is it's how the grape is actually sourced,
Mm.
where your grape is sourced, how it is sourced, how it is barreled, how it is manufactured. All of that plays a huge pivotal role in the actual quality of the wine. And so I also learned that there's two different types of how you can create a non-alcoholic wine. The first being where the grape has never been fermented, which means no alcohol has ever been present in the wine. So it means that the grapes were then, picked from the vineyard and then smashed and add teas, adaptogens, other additives, and bottled that way. And so a lot of this process, a lot of folks do categorize that as a wine alternative because there's never been alcohol present. Secondly, that there is a route that is de-alkalization, which means that the
I've heard of
wine,
that, but I wasn't sure
yeah,
what it was. Okay.
yeah, so this is actually the route I decided to take. And this means that the grape is, you know, picked, barreled, aged, just like any other traditional wine. And fermentation happens, which means that alcohol is present in your wine. And so this is as traditional as any wine can get. So rather than going straight from the barrel to a bottle, this process actually goes from the barrel to a dealkalization machine, which is a very fancy word for a machine that extracts the liquor from a beverage and then leaves the components of the wine left over. So the natural aromas, the natural sulfites, the natural tannins of the wine that have been created in the fermentation process all remain in the liquid just without the alcohol.
That's so interesting.
Really, really interesting. And the reason I took that route is because I was so focused on really being able to replicate the taste, the feel, the tongue encompassing sensation that a traditional wine can give you. In my non alcoholic wine, it just doesn't have alcohol in it. So from there, I didn't have to do a lot of tweaking because not only was our process, it only extracts the liquor and keeps the natural aromas. I used high quality premium grapes. And so that jammy, full body flavor was already present in my non alcoholic wine. So from there, I ended up working with an incredible team of, like I said, sommeliers, chemists, mixologists who we took a little bit of a different route than other non-alcoholic wines have done in the past. The journey of the NA wine industry has been, people have been trying to study this for years. I mean, 15 plus years. And the main science and research behind it is, how can we create the same chemicals and the same molecules that are present in a traditional wine versus what are present in a non-alcoholic wine? I decided to take a little bit of a different route. The
Okay.
reason is, I don't have a chemistry background. And some could look at that a a default. I look at it as such a blessing, because I look at it things and I look at my wine truly from a taste standpoint. How I feel when I drink my wine. What does my body react? How does my body react? How does my tongue, my throat react when I drink the wine versus, are the molecules in a traditional wine matching my NA wine?
That makes sense.
And really why I've been able to move the needle from a taste standpoint, because I I'm a fresh face, fresh mouth, fresh perspective on this. And I'm looking at it through a different lens. And people who have been studying this for years and years and years are saying, wow, we never even thought to make, even thought to go the, how does it really taste? We were just trying to figure out from a chemistry standpoint, how can they match? So that's a really exciting and innovative way that I've been able to approach the actual beverage development standpoint. And then from a branding standpoint, and this is where my bread and butter really gets to shine, is creating a brand that isn't just a CPG company, that isn't just a product. What I wanted to create is a brand that really had a community based around it. I looked at myself as a consumer and I said, what are some of the brands that I follow on social, that I have in either my closet or my fridge or my pantry, because I love the story, because I love the
Right.
branding. I want I want to be associated with that brand. I'm also in product marketing. I work with brands all the time. What is a brand that I would love to work with? And that's how I really got a lot of the ideas of, what is my branding? What do I want it to look like? And going back to, how do I brand something that isn't traditionally quote unquote sexy, or quote unquote something that people are like, I want to get behind this brand, which is the non-alcoholic sector. What I decided to do is, I wanted to create something that people felt so utterly confident walking into a dinner party, walking into a restaurant, walking into, a store, saying, I want a bottle or a glass of For the Love of. And it embodies that you are that girl, you are that man, you are that person that shows up and is your authentic self, is your authentic and vulnerable self, and what you love never needs to be explained. And that's the ethos of my brand, is embracing all there is about this world. Whether it is a non-alcoholic wine, whether it is whatever you love to do. For me, I love yoga, I love running, I love being out, in nature. And for me, I don't have to explain that to folks. I have a lot of
Right.
friends who, that's the last thing they want to do, is wake up at 6 a.m. and go to a yoga class. But that's okay, because for me, it's what fills my cup, and that's what I do because I love it. And so I want to embrace all of the things that everyone loves just for the love of it. And so another piece of it, and my brand mission for the company as a whole, is debunking the narrative that non-alcoholic wine is just for the sober or the non-drinking community. It is for anyone who relishes in the simple pleasures of drinking wine, whether it's on your couch on a Tuesday night watching The Bachelor, whether it's in a backyard party, drinking with friends, or you're at the coolest spot on Abbot Kinney, and wanting to have a
Right.
glass of wine with your sushi. but you don't want to have alcohol, this is the product for you. And so with that, it's transformed in so many different ways, and I've been able to put fun flares to it that really embody my personality, which is, kind of that retro 70s flair that I, very much embody. And again, looked at it very much from a consumer standpoint and what would I want as a consumer, because the beauty of how I positioned myself in the market is I am the consumer for the love of.
Right.
I am, in my late 20s and I don't drink alcohol, but I'm surrounded with going to parties and dinner parties and wanting to get cozy on the couch and drink a glass of wine. But I don't drink alcohol. And so I'm getting a lot of feedback that this is something that a lot of people are really seeking. And I'm blessed to be that container for so many people.
So incredible.
Yeah,
Also, I love the name. I am
thank
obsessed with
you.
brand names. I
Thank
advise
you.
brands while they're trademarking as well. And I have the
Yeah,
podcast, Brand Strategist. So I
yeah,
literally am always looking at brand names. And when I saw your brand name as well, I'm like, I get it. I got
oh,
it. It makes
yeah,
sense. And also hearing your story, seeing the dots connected. So, as far as strategy,
yeah,
when did you start, say, creating the actual wine itself? And what
yeah,
does that look like now going into pre-sale?
yeah. So great question. It's crazy how time works and now things just how it all has unfolded. This the brand and the company and the idea of creating a non-alcoholic wine really started about this time last year, which is
Oh, wow.
so crazy that that things have progressed the way that they have. And I truly believe that so much of it is what you put into the universe. And set out to, for a mission, and I set out on creating something that I believe so strongly about. And I know it sounds like a cliche, but when I work on for the love of, whether it's product development, whether it's branding, whether it's chatting with my investors, working to get capital, it feels so authentic to me. So that work in this past year has been so fulfilled and so full of life for me that this year has, yes, it's only been a year, but what I've learned and curated in the past year is been instrumental. So I always like to just caveat that it's only been a year, but it's so much has happened in that
You've done
year.
a lot in a year.
I've done a lot. I have
You've
done a
done a
lot.
lot in a year. So, what
Yeah.
you mentioned also investors and
Yeah.
raising capital. How
Yeah.
have those conversations gone when you talk about the concept? You're obviously very passionate about it. There's
Yeah.
a need in the market. What are things that are catching people's attention about it from that
Yeah.
perspective?
Yeah, so, I started my raise not knowing a lot. This is obviously my first time raising capital. I didn't have a large network in either the angel or, the VC realm. So what I did was I got really, really vulnerable and authentic with the people that I knew and I loved, and I knew had connections to some of those folks that I didn't. And I said, this is what I'm trying to do. And with that, I was able to say, I'm a sponge right now. So I started this past summer, saying, I'm a sponge. Who can teach me? Who can show me? Whether they've raised before, whether they are friends of investors, help me learn. And with that, I was kicking myself right when I started this, saying, I should have gone to business school. I wish I would have understood this. And now where I'm sitting, you know, I am not to diminish business school. I'm sure, it's great, but I have learned so much in just being in the trenches
Right.
and learning as I go. Um, that's really how this whole thing has really snowballed. And so to give you a little context, right when I started, I was really keen on thinking that a celebrity endorsement route was kind of the route I wanted to go. And so what I did was I curated a list of celebrities public persons who either identify as being alcohol free or sober, or have a kind of a public voice of their relationship with alcohol. And I did a lot of cold outreach to their teams. And we chatted earlier about would you say to someone who's just now starting. I would say, do not sleep on a beautiful cold outreach email. I think there is a craft of how you can do it. There's a right way and there's a wrong way, but being able to explain yourself, it's almost like an elevator pitch, but an elevator
Right.
pitch through email, and getting in front of the right people and getting them excited just on, a few paragraphs is so pivotal and so important. And so I ended up getting some really exciting opportunities from celebrity endorsements. And I ended up at the end of the day, ended up walking away from those opportunities
Tell
for
us why. That's
yeah, from
interesting.
a multitude of reasons. I love the saying, you do better when you know better. And not, I mean, the celebrity endorsement route is a phenomenal route to go down. But when I learned and started to really grasp what I wanted this company to look like 5 years down the line, 10 years down the line, I had to get really, really crystal clear as to what I wanted it to look like. And when I started to understand, you know, it it didn't have that celebrity name attached to it. Um, and I really wanted to curate this brand in a different way. And so, although it was a really hard decision, because not only did I ever think I wouldn't even get a response from these people, I was then actually declining opportunities for an opportunity that I know would give me brand awareness out of the gate, and I know would help me be successful from the get-go. But I stayed true to what I wanted this company to be, and it's been the best decision up until this point.
Incredible. So,
Yeah.
as far as now getting it into people's hands,
Yeah, yeah,
the most exciting, I mean,
yeah.
without even hearing all of the details, just within a year to be able to even have that conversation is a huge accomplishment. But what
Thank
does
you.
that next stage look like?
So the next stage is, as a founder and as an entrepreneur, all we want to do is get our vision, get our product to market, especially with a CPG product. All we do all day long is think about our product, how we can get it into people's hands. And for my product, liquid to lips is so important. Um,
Mm,
Another piece that is so important is ensuring your product is as good as it can be. The blessing that I have been that I've been blessed with is I have investors and I have mentors and advisors who have done this before, who have launched products, whether it's in the NA space or in the food and beverage space. And the advice that they have given to me, and it was a tough pill to swallow because, with you have your ego on one shoulder and your strategic mind on the other shoulder. They said, slow down,
mm,
make sure your product is excellent. And I did just that. And so rather than, I had a anticipated launch date of the fall of this year, and I decided to slowly take the ticking time bomb I gave myself on my back, set it aside, and I said, let's continuing refining, because you have one chance to make a first impression with a
right.
CPG. And with a industry like the non-alcoholic industry, people's guards are already up. People are wanting to diminish it and to say, it doesn't taste like X, Y, and Z. And so that makes my fuel even stronger to make it that much better. And so I've been able to curate an even larger team and you know, go in the trenches of understanding the technology I'm using, the ingredients that I'm using. How can we continue refining the beverage to make it that three-dimensional, complex, high quality wine that I'm seeking? And so with that, I'm in my last stages of revisions with the wine. I'm actually headed back up to Napa with my
Exciting.
team next week. Yeah, I'm very excited. I'll be able to, have people start putting in their emails for our newsletter for everyone to have updates of specific launch dates, what's happening, what's coming down the pipes. We'll absolutely be doing pre-orders on my website. So getting people really excited. We're also going to be building out a subscription model, which for those subscribers, you not only get your For the Love of Cab, but we're going to be rolling out some other varietals, which is, some rosés and some whites. And you, as subscribers, you get kind of the first taste of all of those. And
Love
with
that.
that, we're having some really exciting brand partnerships of, with the subscription, you get some really unique and authentic For the Love of, whether it's merchandise or curated brand material that I'm really excited to share with my customers.
Megan, you are doing an incredible, outstanding job. I mean,
No,
within a year from where you started to where you are now, just congratulations. Because I know when you are a founder and you're in the trenches, like you said earlier, and you're head down creating, it could be really hard to see how far you've come. But your story is really remarkable. And I would love to do a part two
yeah,
once you're out
absolutely.
and you're in retail or in restaurants, whatever the
We'll
case
do
may
it.
be. Because it's really a great story. So, for everyone listening, where should they go to join the wait list and then that first round of pre-sales?
Yeah, so our wait list and our newsletter will be on our website at drinkfortheloveof.com. And then we also are on social at Drink for the Love of across all social platforms, Meta, TikTok, X, all of the above. And, continue following along and be on this journey with me. And, it's been so fun sharing the journey with my soon to be customers and my followers. And you know, people are really resonating with what do you love just for the love of it, because people are being seen. People are really seeing that my hobbies or how people like to walk through life can be embraced by everyone, and nothing ever really needs to be explained. You can just love what you love just for the love of it.
Love it. I love it. I really do. It's fabulous. So,
Thank you.
congratulations. I look forward to trying the product also. It really sounds great.
Great.
And so I'll keep my eyes open for that. Congrats on everything. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Go check out For the Love of, and I'll see you on the next episode. Bye.